Almost every time you buy a car, whether it's used or new, someone offers you an extended warranty. It sounds like a peace of mind. If something breaks, you're covered. But after working with these companies for decades as a shop owner, I've seen how they really work. The good, the bad, and the fine print that nobody reads. In this video, I want to share with you my personal experience dealing with third-party extended warranty plans, what they cover, what they don't, and whether they're actually worth the money. This isn't sponsored, and I'm not selling you a policy. I'm just giving you the real talk from the repair shop side. All right, so let's begin with what these warranties actually are. An extended warranty isn't really a warranty at all. It's more like an insurance policy for your car's repairs. So you pay a company to cover a certain component or components if they fail after the manufacturer's warranty expires. But the catch is that every plan is a little bit different. Now, some are powertrain only, covering just the engine, the transmission, and the drive axles. Others are bumper to bumper, but even those plans have limitations and pages of exclusions. Things like sensors, gaskets, seals, or wear items are sometimes not covered in those policies. So before you sign anything, it's really critical to understand exactly what's covered and what's not. Let's start with the pros of having an aftermarket extended warranty. Now, if you're buying a used vehicle and you don't know the history of it, maybe you're buying from a dealer or something, they're going to offer you one of these plans. It may be worth your investment to take the plan. You don't know the history of the car. You don't know how well it's been maintained. Maybe your Carfax is lacking some maintenance services on it and things. So I believe in that scenario, it may give you a little bit of peace of mind to have this warranty plan. And of course, there are going to be some unknowns in the future. We don't know what major expenses are around the corner, what major failures are going to happen on these cars. And for you to be able to buy that policy, make payments on it over time with your car payment, or maybe you buy it in full, but then you can say to yourself, well, at least if something major happens, I'm not going to be out of pocket for $5,000 or $6,000. You're going to be covered for those things, even if you spent a couple $1,000s on the policy. I think the trick there is just to make sure that you've got the right policy and it's going to cover the things that you expect it to cover. In addition to covering major expenses and major failures, I think it offers some other benefits, again, with the right plan. It may cover rental car expenses, it may cover towing for you. So some of those ancillary things that you haven't even thought about that come along with a major repair could be covered in your policy, but you'll need to check with them. I think when you're working with a reputable company, then these things can be of tremendous value to you. It's going to help you spread out the cost of maintenance and repair over the long term. Now, I probably shouldn't say maintenance because some of those maintenance items are not going to be covered by your policy, and we're going to get into that in a moment. So let's talk about some of the cons of having these aftermarket warranties. Now, I can tell you the obvious con is a declined coverage for something. We see these companies all the time. There are certain repairs they just don't want to cover. Now, I'm not saying they're going outside the scope of what the contract says, but what I am telling you is there's a lot of stuff in the contract that you need to read the fine print on. Sometimes we see cars come in, they may have a blown head gasket on it, which is a major repair. And then we call that in and they'll say, well, what was the cause of the repair? If we can determine that the thermostat got stuck on it and the car overheated because of that, they'll say something along the lines, well, we covered the thermostat for the failure on it, but it's negligent to the driver that they drove it with it overheating and blew the head gasket. Now, I can see both sides of the coin on this, but at some point, you're going to get frustrated as the client, and I'm going to get frustrated as the garage owner dealing with this company that we want them to cover this repair, and they're excluding it from coverage. So you need to be really careful what's covered and what's not, and what the process is, because not everything is going to be covered. On that topic, you got to remember too, these policies aren't going to cover wear items like brakes and oil changes. You may find a policy that's got maintenance included in it, but most of them don't. So I think you really just need to get deep into the details of it before you buy one. And we talked about this a minute ago. I think it's really important that you go with a reputable company. Now, I don't want to name any good or bad companies out there. I don't want to put anybody on the spot necessarily. Maybe I'll name you one good one. I can tell you we do a lot of business with CarMax, and I think CarMax does a pretty good job of covering the client, making sure the shop gets paid properly, giving us quality parts when we need them, and I think they do a decent job of that. So I'll throw one bone out there for you, but I don't want to put anybody in the doghouse. Do your research online and make sure you're getting what you pay for. I can tell you, I had a client one time bring a vehicle into me that needed a transmission, and we had the inspector come out and see there was aftermarket wheels on the car. Now, the aftermarket wheels were the same size as the original wheels, but because they were aftermarket and there was an exclusion in their policy, they declined to cover this transmission repair, which is quite costly. So just one example there. And we see a lot of examples of this. I can tell you another one. We had a customer that was driving for Lyft, and they had that little decal in their window, and the inspector came out to inspect the repair for it, and they said, well, this person's a Lyft driver, they're using it for commercial use, and they also declined the repairs. So these are just a couple examples I'm going through here that I can think of off the top of my head that kind of drive me bonkers. Whether you use it for Lyft or not, it doesn't make a difference. The car is still being driven and it should be covered. And the same thing with the wheel situation. You just got to pay real careful attention to all that fine print. In addition to some of the exclusions that you're going to find within your warranty policy, you're going to find a lot of technicalities in there. And one of the main things that we see all the time is maintenance records. So your manufacturer, they stipulate certain maintenance requirements in the owner's manual. And these aftermarket warranty companies, they want you to keep up with your maintenance. They're not going to warranty a repair because you didn't change your oil or you didn't change your transmission fluid, your coolant wasn't flushed on time. So if you're not paying attention to your maintenance schedule on your car, doing those things on time, you can be excluded from being covered under your warranty plan. And we see this all the time. Somebody will bring us a car, it's got 80,000 miles on it and the engine blows, and they'll say, well, we need to see all of the maintenance records for all the oil changes on this car since it was new. And a lot of times you might be the second or third owner on this car. You don't even have the records on it. Maybe you bought it without looking at the Carfax, and the person that had it before you missed a couple of services. And if that's the case, chances are they're not going to cover that repair. So it's really important that when you buy these plans, you're paying attention to the maintenance records of the car and you're keeping your maintenance records. Good receipts, you want to make sure you got a nice stack of those somewhere. Keep them downloaded to your computer, however you need to do that, because they're going to ask for them. You got to remember, this is a company and they're in business to make money. And if there's an exclusion somewhere, a loophole, where they can deny you coverage for a certain repair, they're probably going to use it. They're not going to just give you a gift out of the kindness of their heart. So keep up on your maintenance if you're going to buy one of these plans. Make sure you keep all your records tidy, and make sure before you buy the car, if it's used, you have some record somewhere that all those maintenance items were taken care of before you bought it, if your warranty plan is going to require that. And I would definitely find out. Maybe they'll give you a pass because you bought it with 60,000 miles and now they just want you to keep up with it from there. And we see that from time to time. So if that's the case, great. Just start taking care of your maintenance from there, but you really need to know what you're buying. So let's get into a few of the items that drive me crazy as a shop owner. Some of these cons here may not affect you as much as me, but they certainly affect me a lot. And I want to tell you that one of the things they like to pull on us is they like to give low labor rates. So they'll do something like, well, the national average is $60 an hour shop labor rate, so that's what we pay on this job. Now keep in mind, we might be at $150 an hour. And they want to pay a lower rate because they're saying, well, that's the national average and that's all we can pay. Now, I'm not saying all companies do this, but there are some out there that try to pull this stuff, and we can't work with that. We don't work for the warranty company. We work for our clients, right? So we're there trying to get as much covered as possible for you, but we can't give work away just because the warranty company dictates what they want to pay. We have a set rate that we have to charge. We have bills to pay and all those things, and we're not just going to discount half a job just because the warranty company doesn't want to pay it. So keep that in mind, that they don't always want to pay the best labor rate, and we're always fighting to make sure that we get as much covered as possible for our clients. Okay, we're working for you, not for the warranty company. So we'll have these fights with them from time to time. Sometimes we get them to step up to the plate, and sometimes they won't. And the end result is always the same. If they're not going to pay for it, it's probably coming out of your pocket. You're going to have to pay the difference. Now, it kind of brings me into another note here that as I'm thinking about this, a lot of these companies have deductibles. So if you have a deductible on your plan, you should know what that is, and you should know that whatever they're covering, you're going to have to pay the difference on that. Now, we just talked about labor rates and things. If you have a deductible and the labor rate is low, you're going to be paying even more than the deductible plus the difference on the repair. So keep that in mind as you go through these plans. The next con that's on my list here is parts quality. So when you run a reputable shop, we want to use quality parts. We would like to offer a great warranty. We stand behind our work. And here comes the aftermarket warranty company dictating what parts we can use. They might say, oh, we're going to send you a used power steering pump. And my answer is always going to be absolutely not. We're not putting used parts on the client's car because you don't want to pay for new. So we often have these fights with them. They might want to send something used. They might want to send something of inferior quality, remanufactured, rebuilt parts, whatever it is. They don't always let us dictate what we want to use. Now, that being said, this is not all the companies. Of course, I'm not generalizing all of them, just a lot of them, okay? We want to make sure that when we're doing the repair, we're providing repair for you as a client, that we're able to use the quality parts we're comfortable with, that we can stand behind, that we know the reputation of them, and we know if there's a problem, our vendor is going to stand behind it as well. Okay, so a lot of times these companies, they'll say, we're going to send you a part. And that puts us in a real predicament, because if we use their part and something happens and it fails down the road, they want us to warranty the part. And we're using an inferior part. I'm not comfortable with that. So, and neither should you be, as the client, the one that paid for the warranty, and getting an inferior part. So you want to check in your policy if they have some exclusions on new parts, or if they are allowed to dictate where the parts come from. Wherever you take your vehicle, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to get the parts quality that your shop, your provider, wants to give you. Okay? We don't want to deal with inferior parts because the warranty doesn't want to pay. All right, so here's another thing on my list that drives me bonkers, is the delay and the red tape that comes along with some of the approvals on these jobs. Okay, so we already talked about maintenance receipts. So let's say the warranty company comes in and says, well, we need all the maintenance records. Now I got to come to you as the client, and I got to say, listen, Mrs. Jones, I need every maintenance record since this car was new. Now that puts you in a predicament where you got to go and dig these things up and try to find them, and that creates a delay in itself. And in our garages, we don't have time for cars to be half apart or broken on the rack while we're waiting for you days to come up with receipts, okay? And I'm not saying that's the client's fault, but I'm just saying that it creates delays for us in productivity where we can't get any work done, okay? In addition to that, some of these warranty companies will send an inspector out, or an insurance adjuster. They'll send them out to do an inspection on the vehicle to determine if what we're telling them is actually what needs to be done. Now, I completely agree with that. I have no problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is when they don't send anybody for days and days and days, and then we got a car that's apart on a rack a lot of times. It's tying up our lift. We can't do other work on it. Parts all over the floor because they want to send somebody to look and see what the point of failure was. Now, generally speaking, within a 48-hour window, we can usually get an inspector out, and that's fine. I know there's a certain window that we're comfortable with. We kind of anticipate that ahead of time. We're still losing time and space with your vehicle, but I think some of that is manageable, right? It's just when the delays get excessive. And of course, then we've got to call you as the client and try to fill you in. Hey, the inspector hasn't showed up yet, right? Well, now we're 4 days into the time we're waiting, and you need your car back. Maybe you got a rental car. There's just all kinds of situations where it puts us in a real predicament where we're not the delay, your warranty company is, right? So that's just one of the things that kind of makes us cuckoo there, and it also makes the client crazy. The other con here, I think, is the obvious elephant in the room, is the cost of some of these policies. Now, I don't generally buy these policies, so I don't have a ton of firsthand knowledge of how much they cost other than what my clients tell me from time to time. And some of these policies are really expensive. I'm talking thousands of dollars. So, you look at it from the standpoint of somebody that maybe drives a Lexus, and they spend $4,000 to get this premium policy, and then they never really use it, right? So, I mean, I guess you got the peace of mind at least, but some of these policies are really expensive. Now, that being said, I can also tell you that auto repairs are really expensive. So if you're feeling like that peace of mind is worth the value, what you paid for it, then I'd say go for it, okay? On that note, if you're buying a car that has the high mileage on it, maybe it's a really complex car, a Mercedes-Benz, a BMW, or something that we know is prone to failures, I think these warranties can actually be a real benefit to you if you have the right one. Again, I repeat that probably for the 4th time so far. You need the right policy. Don't go out there and buy the cheapest one available. You want to make sure that you read all the fine print and that they cover or encompass all the things that you think might actually go wrong with your car. Another example might be if you don't have an emergency fund, you don't have the money to pay out if you get an expensive repair, you don't have room on a credit card. Well, these things can certainly be of value to you. You just got to keep in mind the flip side too. If you're paying for this policy and you're rolling it into a 6-year car loan, you're going to be paying interest on that. Interest on $4,000 worth of car warranty could cost you a ton of money. So There's always a hidden cost sometimes where you're financing a warranty policy in addition to paying for the policy, and then in addition to the fact they don't cover the maintenance, brakes and tires and oil changes, and in addition they may not cover your big repairs. So just some things to think about here as we go through this video. I wanted to talk to you for a minute just about the manufacturer plan. So when you go buy a new car, I don't want to mention any manufacturers here other than what I did already, but you go buy a new car and some of these plans are backed by the manufacturer. They have their extended care programs. I found a lot of these programs to be actually quite a good value. They're worth money. A lot of times if you have an independent repair shop that you like to use, you may have to take it back to the dealership because it's their plan. And there's nothing wrong with that. From my standpoint as a shop owner, I'd rather do the work in our shop, obviously, but I understand if you have a plan and you're within 50 miles of the nearest dealer for the manufacturer of your car, you may have to take it there instead in order to get that plan to cover it. Now, most of them have a range. If you break down out of town and you don't have a dealership within 50 miles, you can usually take it wherever you want. So this will be another example where you want to read the fine print and see who can you take it to. If you have a trusted mechanic that you like to use and you want to only go to them, you might want to be extra careful what you buy there. But I like a lot of these manufacturer-backed plans. I think they do a better job of covering the car, and they're a lot easier to work with a lot of times. So on a side note, if you're being cold called for a warranty plan, if somebody's mailing you something, just be extra cautious. Those plans may not be the plan for you. You want to really do your research, do a lot of review checking. If you can figure out, if they're covering things for people or if they're just difficult to work with, they're time consuming to get your car fixed, they're not covering your rental repair while the car is laid up for 2 weeks. You want to know those things ahead of time. You don't want any surprises come time to use that warranty. Another thing you may want to consider that might bring some value to you in the future is the ability to transfer the warranty to a new buyer. So let's say you've got your car for a year or two, and whether you use the warranty or not, you may want to resell that to somebody else, and you may want to include that warranty with the sale of the car and maybe bump the price of the car a little bit because you've paid for this warranty. It brings a lot of value to the person that's going to be buying it from you, and maybe get you a little of your money back as well. Some of these plans are not easily transferable. Maybe they can only be transferred once. There's a lot of things to think about in these warranty plans. So I would say look into that if that's something that's important to you. Make sure it's transferable. I can tell you I bought a plan for my daughter's Toyota. I shouldn't say I bought the plan. I bought the car, and the person I bought it from had the plan, and all I had to do was mail in a little letter to them and email, and they were able to transfer that plan directly into my name, and I was able to use it. Now, I can tell you, when we bought a Toyota and then hadn't needed anything in years after that. So whether we needed it or not was a different story, but it was fully transferable, which is really nice. So here's my honest takeaway after years of dealing with extended warranty companies from the repair side. When it comes to manufacturer-backed plans like Toyota, Honda, or Hyundai's own coverage, those are generally pretty solid. I think they pay fairly, the process is smooth, and you usually get what you expect. But most of the third-party extended warranty companies that I've dealt with, they can be hit or miss. Some are okay, but many are built to protect their bottom line more than your vehicle. Between exclusions, low labor rates, and slow approval process, it's not always the safety net people think they're buying. Now, that doesn't mean the warranties are bad, but it does mean you should go in with realistic expectations. If you understand what's covered, keep up on your maintenance, and you save your receipts, an extended plan can still be worth it for the right car and the right situation. If you're on the fence, remember you can always set that same money aside in a maintenance fund. Either way, you're protecting yourself from surprise repair bills. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you had a good or bad experience with an extended warranty plan? Did it save you money, or did it turn into a headache? Drop your stories and questions down in the comments. I read as many of these as I can, and your feedback really helps shape our future videos. I want to thank one of our viewers for mentioning this topic for us. I believe it's something that's important to talk about. If you find this information helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. And don't forget to share this video with anyone thinking about buying a used car or an extended warranty. It may save them a lot of stress and a lot of money. Thanks for watching, for supporting the channel, and for being part of the AutoTech Garage community.